Captain Gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. You guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely gonna want to check this one out. So we got that View host Alyssa Farah Griffin stirring the pot, poking the bear, and angering Jill Biden as she airs Joe Biden out, putting him on blast live on CNN. And this one, guys, I'm excited to get into it, turn up straight into it. All I ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
Joe Biden totally effed us. That, a quote from a Kamala Harris official in a new book that paints a damning picture of how far the White House went to hide his decline. Among the revelations from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, Biden's team hid him from his staff and even members of his cabinet. They considered that he may need a wheelchair in the future and contradicted warnings from his doctor. And Biden didn't recognize George Clooney, one of his longtime supporters and, of course, one of the most famous movie stars and faces on the planet. But as the scandal branches grow, what about the people who have political runways, the Pete Buttigiegs of the world, hitting a Midwest tour, Kamala Harris thinking about a run for California governor? Will and should their futures be impacted by this scandal? It kind of seems like the answer has to be yes, right?
Well, wait a minute.
Especially for someone like Kamala Harris, who is in the White House.
Every Democrat's rushing to say, oh my gosh, Joe Biden wasn't fit to run for re-election, but they let him stay in running the country for another 5 months. It's complete hypocrisy to say, yes, we think he wasn't fit, but it was okay that policy continued to be made, and we didn't ask him to step down.
It's tragic for the Democratic Party to have let him go on so long when clearly people around him knew that there was a serious problem. The people closest to him had been close to him for years, most of them like 20 years. So they were super loyal to him, more than normal analysts, activists who come and go. I don't know that I retain, as a Democrat, if I retain being a Democrat, if I'm mad at Pete Buttigieg because he didn't waive. Am I mad at Kamala? I would not think it would be her responsibility to say, you're not. Now, might she say something privately? Yeah, but I would not expect her to publicly.
But I guess
that's what the 25th Amendment's all about,
though. So much, but like, because you're left-leaning. I'm talking about the average American. When they ask the question, what did you know and when did you know it?
Right.
Yeah. Right? And I think one of the things that is in the excerpts from this book is this idea that it wasn't just that Kamala Harris only had 100+ days to run, but that the idea that Americans felt like they were being deceived by the Democratic Party,
it was blatant deception. It was right in front of our eyes. We could see that Kamala Harris, Corinne Jean-Pierre, KJP, both of those folks, they got up there, Pete Buttigieg, they got up there and lied day in and day out. Kamala Harris saying that I'm with, I mean, even if she didn't come out and just flat out say that Biden's cognitive decline is there, he's not probably fit to run for another 4 years, Kamala Harris did not have to keep sugarcoating or throwing the icing on top, covering up for Joe Biden, saying that, excuse me, that he's there, he's all the way with it, and she thinks that Joe Biden is youthful, he's ready to run another 4-year term. She could have just stopped it right there, not been boasting or putting this guy into the spotlight. Instead, she kept gassing him up to say that Joe Biden was this high figure, that he's just so ready, he's with it. But he wasn't. He clearly wasn't, and she knew that all these folks ought to be ashamed of themselves, and they need to be held accountable. We can't keep sugarcoating this for folks.
Felt like they were being deceived by the Democratic Party. It tainted her in that last election already.
She did the deceiving. She said
well, I think that this is the question.
She did.
How does she escape that?
This was something where I think the public was ahead of where the politicians and even to some degree the media was. 2 years before the disastrous debate, we were sitting there together, Abby, there were polls that were showing 67% of Americans thought Joe Biden was too old to have another term. And Democratic politicians did not listen to those warnings. And I interviewed Joe Biden a week and a half ago on The View. I left thinking he definitely could not have done another 4 years. I'm grateful for his service. He had a good command of the facts of things he was proud of to talk about that he did, but there was just no way that Joe Biden could do 4 more years. And I do think the future leaders of the party have to say something better than it's time to look forward. They need to address that the public was saying we need someone else, and they waited until the last minute and frankly did not have a particularly democratic process.
Can I ask one quick question, Alyssa?
And I don't know if I can agree with that, where she's saying the public was ahead of the politicians and the legacy media outlets on this one. It wasn't about being ahead of them. It was the fact that they were right there with us. They knew as well, but they continued to try to cover it up. And they did a poor job at it. I mean, we could see straight through all these attempts to try to make Joe Biden look like he was more with it than what he was. We could clearly see that he was not the one that was pulling the strings or behind the wheel of that bus, because he was just on vacation 90% of the time. This guy was never at the White House. He was on a beach in Delaware. Almost every single time that we looked up, Joe Biden was somewhere on a beach, sleeping in front of the press, sleeping in front of the media. He wasn't taking any interviews. He wasn't taking any questions. This guy, Joe Biden, just was not there. It was a terrible cover-up job. You know, the absence of Joe Biden, they thought that we were going to still be able to believe that he had or he was with it because they were withholding or keeping him from us. But that didn't do anything but make us more suspicious of the fact that there was a cover-up job being conducted. These folks they've clearly lost it, and they've lost all credibility right here with the whole Joe Biden, Robert Hur interview coming out. Now we can see that they knew for a lot longer than what they're trying to paint the picture to say, saying that the public was ahead of the politicians and the legacy media. That was intentional. That was very intentional what they were trying to do.
About that interview, I mean, what did you make of the fact that Jill Biden was there with him?
I thought it was very unhelpful. I asked the specific question about allegations of his cognitive decline, and he began to answer it, and then she jumped in for him. And I get it, as a spouse, you want to help your partner, but that was his moment to knock out of the park any fear that he has cognitive decline, and it played into basically the worst assumptions, that he can't finish sentences and she had to help him out.
I think Democrats...
It's not the worst assumption. It is clear. These folks are making it seem like we're still just assuming that Joe Biden is not with or he's had some sort of cognitive decline. It's all right there in front of us in black and white. All the footage shows. Heck, that first debate showed us that this guy was not with it. The earpiece must have had too much delay, and he was too hard of hearing to get the commands in time, because he absolutely... Trump wiped the floor with this guy 2 times over. Even with the rigged moderators, it did not matter. Joe Biden just, he wasn't there. He didn't have it. He couldn't do it. And these folks need to stop trying to say it like Joe Biden, somehow it's all us assuming, the public's just assuming, we're on the outside looking in, we don't know what's really happening. No, exactly what we're seeing this guy put his best foot, if that's his best foot forward on TV, national television, just imagine what's going on behind the scenes when he's a little bit more relaxed or a little bit, not as much under pressure. Imagine how he behaves then. It's probably even worse. So we're seeing his best foot forward look terrible. Imagine him on his off days. Even worse.
Democrats have to start doing what these 2 things right here, start listening a little bit more, because Representative Dean Phillips went on a tour in November, October. He went on Pod Save America, where all David Plouffe and all these folks went to complain about how they didn't have enough time. And they didn't listen to Dean Phillips and others that were warning about Joe Biden was not in the best position to lead the party to beat Donald Trump. Back to your data point. There was polling that showed we didn't want a rematch. You and I did Super Tuesday. We were talking about this, like, America doesn't even want a rematch. It was like 67% of Americans don't want a rematch. Going back to the journalistic angle where I come from this, we did this on the show recently, where a lot of segments, when we were listening back to KJP press conferences, a lot of the questions were focused on... press secretary, thank you. We were doing a lot, she was taking a lot of questions about how voters feel about Joe Biden's age. Yeah. But that's not the questions. The questions, again, back to this journalist part of framing questions. The man fell off a bike. The man gave a terrible debate performance and looked like he was completely out of it. 2020, he does an interview with CBS News, and he looks incredibly cogent, and he looks like he's there. And now what we're seeing is a frail old man, right? And so, like, there's got to be something timeline-wise that we continue to ask, what is being hidden? So now that the book is coming out, and again, Jake's coming on my show, so I'm going to ask him about this, but it's something's curious about it. It's different than what I'm talking about with the Democratic Party.
But
I think you're right.
Everybody knows older people who, again, it's a good day, bad day kind of situation. Right. I think that's part of the difficulty of this story.
But the 25th Amendment's there so that the bad days, you don't accept them. And we don't let someone stay in the job who has the days that are that bad. I think Mike's right, though. Dean Phillips is owed a big apology. Huge. And that's something that's missing in this analysis by Democrats, this autopsy. No one's saying we should have listened to Dean Phillips. And the reason they didn't listen to Dean Phillips, who was a member of the Democratic leadership, who'd won in a tough suburban district, who was sufficiently liberal to satisfy most liberals, is Trump derangement syndrome. most Democrats and a lot of people in the news media were so furious at the thought that Donald Trump could win, they didn't want to risk an open primary. They were all in on the game. It was all a rigging for Joe Biden.
Yo, there we have it, guys. Oh my goodness. We've seen a CNN panelist talking about owing an apology. If an apology is owed to anyone, it's the supporters of the Democratic Party, because they were lied to, gaslit into really believing that they had a fair shot in this one. Two separate times they come out saying that we've got this. Don't worry about it. If Joe Biden has slipped, his cognitive decline and his mental state just isn't where it needs to be. We've got another candidate for you, Kamala Harris. Oh my goodness, she's going to get it done. And they were lied to twice. I think that's who deserves an apology. And I just say the folks on the left, because I'm going to be real with you. Anyone who was on the right, they could see straight through this. Folks that didn't have those Trump derangement syndrome blinders, what I like to call it, that TDS syndrome, they were able to see straight through the games of these legacy media outlets, the Biden White House, and these prominent figures of the Democratic Party. We can see straight through that because they weren't covering it up well. I mean, they kept letting this guy show up. I don't know if he was giving them courage or, giving them confidence behind the scenes, saying, hey, no, guys, I'm really ready. I can do this. And then getting up there and bombing every single time. But they kept putting their cards in front of us. We could see exactly what was happening with Joe Biden and his mental decline. Yet they kept lying to folks on the left, saying, hey, you guys have got a fair shot in this one. Let's just run Joe one more time. And then up into that debate, they were like, okay, this isn't going to work. We've lost all confidence in Joe. They pushed that phony candidate in front of you guys, Kamala Harris, without a true primary. I mean, who's to say who would actually been the Democratic frontrunner for the 2024 elections had Kamala Harris actually had to go up in a real primary? You guys might actually have a fighting chance, but they lied to you guys twice. I definitely think they owe an apology to everyone that's in support, has been in support of the Democratic Party, because I know a lot of folks have jumped ship by now, but oh my goodness. How about that View host, Alyssa Farah Griffin? I know Jill is not going to take very kindly to that. She just exposed Joe Biden, saying, hey, I think we probably could have done without old Joe Biden sitting directly next to Joe on his appearance on the set of ABC's The View. She kind of just confirmed everything we were thinking, that Joe Biden can't even finish his own sentences, has to have an aide, a nanny, Jill Biden there, super mom, to protect him, make sure that he is protected and shielded from all of these questions. Oh my goodness, that iced the cake for me. I don't know about you guys. Definitely hop in the comment section. Comments are open. I'm excited to hear what you guys are thinking on this one. Also, make sure you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you'd enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next week.